On this episode of Locked On Canadiens, what was Josh Anderson doing with his tongue after he scored on Saturday night?
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to episode 1205 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and your first listen of the week this week. Thanks for tuning in on this Monday. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian. I'm joined by Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, a 4-2 loss on Saturday, but the vibes seemed kind of good after that game. How are you feeling after the weekend?
Well, we talked so much about how good of a team Winnipeg was. And so I think the Canadiens did valiantly against them. I'm going to call it valiant. I don't know. I'm taking moral victories at this point.
Sure.
Lane Hutson finally scored a goal. Extremely underwhelming in terms of we thought it went with exactly what we thought it was going to go and no weird assist line like we talked about on Friday. But very, very excited for Lane Hutson. Like you can't be too disappointed with the effort that they made. We would have liked to win, obviously. There were some issues, obviously, but coming away from that, I thought they did much better than the last couple of days when we talked about throwing up all over themselves.
Yeah, the bar of comparison here is very low. Yes. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about the game against the Jets. It is Monday, which of course means we have our weekly recap to go through. And then I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the special teams, as we'll talk about in the weekly recap. They did not have a strong week, but we maybe talk about what's going wrong and maybe what the Canadiens can do to fix it. But first, we'll start Saturday in Winnipeg, the Patty Laine return game. He had 8 shots on goal. He was ready for this one. He wanted to beat Connor Hellebuyck so bad. He did not. He came very close several times, but I think Connor Hellebuyck was especially keyed in on those shots from Patty Laine. 4-2 loss in Winnipeg, which I think if that game was not preceded by a 9-2 loss, I think we're talking about that a little bit differently. Even if they lost against Pittsburgh like 4-3 or something like that, we're talking about the game against Winnipeg much differently than we are. But in a vacuum, the Winnipeg effort was good. I thought they started really well. I thought they got themselves into penalty trouble from and I don't know. I watched the game on delay from everybody else, so I wasn't sure if everyone hated the officiating in that game, but I thought the officiating was fine.
It was not something to be talking about, essentially.
Right. That's what I figured. The fact that nobody was really mentioning it, I was like, okay, so they probably thought that this was fine. I mean, every Canadiens penalty was seemingly they were behind the play. I mean, Caulfield took 2 hooking penalties because he got behind the play. Kirby Dach took a high sticking penalty because he got behind the play. Like it was stick infractions because their feet weren't working. So right. Like that's
it's normal against a much better team. That's what you're expecting against a much better team. You're not expecting a 9-2 shellacking against a terrible team, and you're getting that. But what you're expecting when your team isn't that great and they're playing like what is one of the best teams in the league right now, you're expecting all of those things because they're going to be behind the play. I'm betting that the hit count was higher for Montreal too.
Yeah, I would imagine. I don't pay too much attention to the hit counter because in my brain the hit, so like higher hits mean less puck. Like you just have the puck less. And like I feel like playoff games, especially, they goose those numbers quite a bit because, like, man, that playoff game, there was 120 hits in that game. No, there wasn't. Stop. There wasn't 2 hits a minute. That doesn't make any sense. So that's one of the numbers that I'm not a true believer of because it's entirely subjective and depending on who's calling it. Lane Hutson, first National Hockey League goal, and it wasn't some scrub goal. It was a really nice goal.
It was so good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was in Hartford watching Laval lose 4-2 at the time of this game, so I didn't get to see it live. I found out from our friend Scott Matla texting us. Well, at least Hutson scored. What are your thoughts as he finally gets that 0 off of his score sheet?
Well, he scored it while I was in the washroom, so I guess I'm going to have to
saw it.
It's something we've been talking about all season long. Neither of us saw it live. But now I think that means that I have to like be in the washroom for like the entire game.
You can't make me go to Hartford every game. You can't make me do it.
I
It's
literally have
it's
to
an
be
hour away from
moving
here. I cannot do it.
You have to move to Hartford. I'm sorry.
No, I don't wanna. No, I mean,
Um,
another aside, the Laval game, they played really well too and still lost. They just every shot that they took went directly into the goalie's chest. So
yeah.
that is, I got to see Sean Farrell's first goal of the season. So there's that. It was a nice one too.
1 game since he scored, so it was about time.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, like Lane Hutson, it's nice that he finally has that 0 off of his score sheet. I don't know how much it was weighing on him. He's such a young player and he's a defenseman. He's not really expected to score goals. It's
I think it's fine. Like,
and it didn't reach like Victor Mete levels of this guy needs to score.
yeah. And he also like, I mean, he's got so many points anyway. And at first I saw that and I was like, why aren't they happy for him? Why aren't they crowding him? And then I realized it's because 2 of the players, I think Mike Matheson and I can't remember, I think it might have been Cole Caulfield,
Yep.
like went to get the puck for him. And I was, it's so cute.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think it wasn't really a thing until the last couple of games when everybody kept asking him about it. And I know we're guilty of that too. We didn't ask him about it, but we kept talking about it on the show. So I feel like that he might have started feeling the pressure, but he's doing so great. And people, who are really paying attention and truly understand the game of hockey, they talk about how this player brings something special, right? There's something about the way he plays the games that we don't see too often. The skill and the talent and the intelligence there. It's rare. I'm not going to say it's unique, but I'm going to say it's rare. So like, if you truly understand hockey, then you understand the value of this player. And it would have been okay if he never scored. But he did finally. So that's going to shut like a particular subset of people up at this point.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that, people who know what they're talking about call this, they see him as the special player he is. I just think back to the game against Pittsburgh. One of the only bright spots of that game was that shift from Lane Hutson. I forget if it was like 10 minutes into the first or 10 minutes into the second. It was midway through a period. And he just decided, actually, I'm the greatest player who has ever touched the ice. And you're not getting the puck away from me. And he did it all along the wall. Yeah. Like he was on the boards. And, small players aren't supposed to do well along the boards. And he was just ruining shifts for the Penguins. Like they just could not get the puck away from him. This is the kind of player that he is, man. Like he's shifty. He is very difficult to take the puck away. There was a play later on in that Winnipeg game where he turned the puck over and it seemed like it was going to be a breakaway going back the other way. And he just hustled and definitely held the guy and just waited for reinforcements to arrive, and it totally worked, So good stuff from Lane Hutson. I opened the show though with Josh Anderson with the weirdest goal celebration of the year so far. That was Anderson's 5th goal of the season, by the way. Like he's having a good year. But he scores and the camera zooms right in on him and he's just like knocking his tongue back and forth across his mouth. Did anybody after the game ask him about that? Like, what was that? Why did you do that?
I don't think he knows. I think
it just felt right.
I think he doesn't know what to do with himself anymore after he scores because he's just been doing so much other stuff other than scoring. That was really funny though, because I kept looking at it and I was like, is that on purpose? Like what?
It was so stupid. It was so stupid. I was like, Chris, my wife was sitting next to me, and she was on her phone, and she looked up right as they scored, and we just were both at the same time. We're like, "Oh, what are you doing? Why stop that? Stop that!" Like, it was very visceral for both of us. But look, if he's going to keep scoring goals, I hope to see it more. Honestly, if that line is going, we're in good shape.
Yeah. Another good thing that I have to mention: the coward Mark Scheifele with no points. The Canadiens harassed him all evening long. And honestly, I'm not sorry about it.
There was that one section of the game where I think, the Winnipeg was on a power play and all of them decided that they didn't know how to stand on their skates anymore and just tried to draw another 5-on-3 because they knew they'd score on it. And they just flopped for about 30 seconds. And Scheifele was the last flop. And then he got up and Savard had gotten so far under his skin that he just popped Savard in the face and got a penalty and ended the power play. Like that was... David Savard has done that a few times now. He did it to Max Domi in that game against Toronto. Yeah. Like this is Savard has these moments where he can just turn into the uber pest. And I don't know where it came from, but it's awesome.
And I know, and I feel like every player in the league should learn how to do that, particularly against the coward Mark Scheifele.
Yeah, I mean, just there's not a lot of players in this league I have zero respect for. Mark Scheifele is one of them. He always will be after what he did to Jake Evans.
I know, and I know we're running out of time, but the thing that like really bothers me is as little respect as we in Montreal have for that guy. Like people in Winnipeg have respect for him, and that's why I can never agree with them. It's I want to like them, but the fact that they respect him so much and think and talk about him as a leader and a character guy and a blah blah blah, and I'm just like, nope, we are not the same.
Yeah, no, you are wrong. We will agree to disagree on this one. All right. We're moving on. We have to cover the entire week as it was for the Montreal Canadiens. Another week where they lost more than they won, but you can start to see some process improving in Montreal. We'll get into that in just a moment. There's just something about going to live events around the holidays. Maybe it's something as simple as spending time with your friends and family, or getting an excuse to see mascots dressed up for the holidays. Either way, if you want to get together with your loved ones at a live event this holiday season, Gametime is here to help. Gametime has a new feature called the Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Gametime Picks will make it easier to pick out the perfect gift of an experience at a live event this holiday season. Maybe you're stateside with me for the holidays and are looking to follow the Habs on the road. Well, Gametime Picks has you hooked up, picking out a super deal for their tilt in Columbus against the Blue Jackets. $61 gets you into the lower bowl to see Patty Laine take on his old team. As always, these tickets come with my favorite feature, the lowest price guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Laura, we are back. We are back, and it is time to talk about the week as it was for your Montreal Canadiens with our weekly recap.
Yes, and our contest.
Oh, you want to do the contest quick? Here,
yes.
you tap dance while I find the picture.
All right, so here we go. We are running a contest. It is the end of the year. There's, the end of year lists. The prize, as you can see, is Ian is parting with his precious signed Carey Price picture. It is a 13 by 11 picture, not one of those 8 by 11, scams. And all you have to do is send us a screenshot of either your Spotify Wrapped or any of your podcast apps showing that we were in your top 5 this season. We've gotten a couple from some different apps as well. And if where you listen to us does not have that feature, all you got to do is leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice. It should be a recent review. Send us a screenshot. You can send it to us at LockedOnCanadiens email at gmail.com. Sorry, LockedOnCanadiens at gmail.com. That's the best way to do it. For those of you who sent it to us on social media, I have recorded the entries as well.
Perfect. Good luck. We enjoy seeing it. Very, very, very much looking forward to giving this away to somebody and rewarding our listeners for tuning in. It means a lot to us that we make these lists for you guys. We don't take it for granted. So thank you we're not asking you for money. We're asking you for your time, and you're giving that to us. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right. The week as it was for the Montreal Canadiens. It started off with a win and ended with 2 losses because they are incompatible with this format of the show, but we are not changing. They will change around us. Believe it. It started with a 3-2 shootout win against Anaheim in an effort that I think we all kind of thought they should have given us more. A 9-2 loss against Pittsburgh, which we know they should have given us more, and a 4-2 loss against Winnipeg, which I felt they played pretty well, honestly.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts at the end of the week?
So honestly, I feel like they threw away the Anaheim game more than anything else. Even though they won it, I feel like it was a prime opportunity to get your foot on the neck of an opponent and just, not let up for the whole game. And that's not what they did. They did the opposite. They just basically, they didn't coast as much as they allowed Anaheim to control the game at points. Yes, it was 2 bad teams playing together, but I felt like Montreal had the opportunity and the potential to really skate Anaheim out of the building. They did not do that. So, at the end of the day, that is a win. And against Pittsburgh, what can we say? We talked a lot about it on our Friday episode. The third period was just inexcusable. So I don't really want to dwell on that too much because it is an identified problem the Canadiens have. It's something that Marty knows. It's something that the front office knows, and it's something that the players know, and it's something that they have to do something about. So, every one of those games, I'm looking at it as if this doesn't wake you up, then you shouldn't be in your job, right? So whether you're the coach, you're the front office, you're the player, like something has to give there. And we talked a lot about also like putting in Primo for 11 minutes. I think it was 11 minutes at that point. But Winnipeg, I would have liked to see them win just because I wanted to see their effort get rewarded. I don't like Winnipeg as a team, unfortunately. Sorry, happy Carity. But there's something about them that really grinds my gears. It's just, and I don't even think it's the whole coward Mark Scheifele thing. I think it's just, they've always just been anyway. So for the Canadiens to not beat them, I can't be disappointed. It's just that I'm sad for them because I felt like that was a lesson, is if you play like that, you should be able to win a game, and you should be rewarded with that win. So that's where I'm at. And obviously it would have been poetic if Laine scored, blah, blah, blah. But, Lane Hutson scored instead.
Yeah. For me, the whole Winnipeg thing, I still see them as the Atlanta Thrashers. Like in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, this is the Atlanta Thrashers still. Like they share, like Ilya Kovalchuk has records with this franchise. Like that to me is what I cannot shake that. That's on me. This is over a decade ago now. Like I need to get over that, but I can't. I did think that it was important that after the Pittsburgh game and the way that we lamented their third period play as of late, that the third period against Winnipeg was one of their stronger thirds in a long time. And that means something because the Winnipeg Jets are the best third period hockey team in the NHL. They score more goals in the third period than any other team. So for Montreal to essentially draw even to them in that third period, I mean, the one that Winnipeg got was an empty netter, so you can take or leave that. But the fact that they took it to them in the third period and didn't give up anything on Montembeault is telling me that they know that this is a problem and they are working to fix it. I did also think it was funny that Montreal outscored them at even strength in that game. They were 2-1 at even strength. They had a 6-on-5 goal and 2 power play goals, and those were the difference maker. But that brings me to the special teams for the week. We're going to talk about more of like what's going wrong with them next, but the special teams let them down this week. Power play went 1 for 10. They had 1 power play goal all week. They went 0 for 4 in the last 2 games. And the penalty kill was 7 for 12, 58%. They were 2 for 3. They gave up 1 against Anaheim and 2 against Pittsburgh and 2 against Winnipeg. That's bad.
That's not okay.
No, that is how you lose hockey games. If people who have been listening since I got on the show over the summer will know that I've said you win the game at 5-on-5, you lose it at special teams. They lost it at special teams. They won it at 5-on-5. They had the lead at 5-on-5. Their penalty kill and their power play let them down. Goals this week we had Laine, Doc, Suzuki, Armia, Hutson, Anderson. Nobody had more than 2 points all week for the Montreal Canadiens. The scoring has sort of dried up. They've 4 straight games with only 2 goals. 5 if you count the Nashville game, because the Nashville game they got an empty netter, so it was 3-0, but it was really 2-0. They still only have the 1 win while trailing, the game at Buffalo. They are 0-10-1 when trailing after the first, and 0-13-0 when trailing after 2. I say this because I also saw a stat that the Washington Capitals have 13 come from behind wins this season. And that's sort of the difference between a team like Montreal and a team like Washington. I talked about it. Good teams can find ways to win in the third period. The Canadiens are not at that point yet. They just can't. They cannot find those wins. They have 1 regulation win in their last 11 games. It was that game against Nashville. So, things are not, the numbers are not looking great, but it seems like at least with the way that this week ended against Winnipeg, that they can build off of this game. There's good stuff here. Any parting thoughts on the week before we move on?
No, honestly, I'm glad that it ended on the note that it did, even though they didn't win. Seeing that improvement. And I know we are going to talk about special teams versus even strength in the next segment. So I'm going to reserve my thoughts for that.
Yeah, no, it was good stuff. It was definitely, and it was a weird week for Sam Montembeault, right? Win against Anaheim, which I think I thought they would have played Primo in that game, and they probably needed Montembeault considering they could not score against the Anaheim Ducks. And then, he gets lit up against Pittsburgh, through almost no fault of his own. It was just sort of the Canadiens let him down in front. And then a really strong effort against Winnipeg. He made some really, really, really big saves against the Jets and kept them in the game when, even at 3-1, they were still in that game. So strong week from him, granted the Pittsburgh disaster, but everybody was terrible in that game. Can't really blame him there. All right. We'll move on from our weekly recap. When we come back, we're going to break down the special teams, what's going wrong with the power play and what's going wrong with our penalty killer. And we will get into all that in just a minute. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This episode is also brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them down. It's like having a personal assistant but for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, it's one of the best features is the subscription tracker. No one likes paying for subscriptions they're not using anymore, especially when you thought you stopped paying for them months ago. Rocket Money helps you keep track of all your subscriptions. Plus, with their goals feature, you're able to automatically set aside money for your future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, we're back. Final segment for you on this Monday. We talked about it in our weekly recap. The special teams were a letdown for the Montreal Canadiens this week. 10% on the power play, 58% on the penalty kill. It's a far cry from a team that was kind of carried by those special teams for a while. The power play, at a time was near the top 10 in the league, or I think it was in the top 10, wasn't it? 8. It was hovering around one of the better units in the league.
Absolutely.
Now they're back down to around league average, like around 16, 17. And 2 games where they went 0 for, where they definitely could have used some help. The Pittsburgh game got out of hand, but the Winnipeg game, a power play goal here or there earlier on in the game, that might have helped Montreal at least get a point in that one. What are you seeing on the power play? Let's start there. Patty Laine is back, but if he's not scoring, it seems like nobody is.
So I think for me, what I'm noticing there is that they're trying to adjust, right? Like him coming back is great. It's fantastic. But that means that a lot of people's roles are still adjusting, right? So I have a little bit more patience for the power play to see if it gets back to clicking than I do for the penalty kill, just because of the personnel change. Not just the personnel change, but the magnitude of the personnel change, right? So there's, and obviously we know Mike Matheson was out, injured, blah, 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 in and out. So for me, I think the power play just needs a little bit more time and a little bit more practice. Like they need to just practice a little bit more so people feel more comfortable, because they feel out of place, or it looks like they feel out of place. I can't speak for them, but that's what it feels like for me.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think Laine coming back is such a seismic shift for this unit. And earlier on, when they weren't really, I can't imagine they had practiced a bunch with Laine on that power play. When they weren't coached up, they were kind of just get the puck to Laine, right? And his shot is so deadly, it didn't matter. Anything else that came before that didn't really matter all that much. now that I think, they're starting to understand their own power play, they sort of need to figure out roles and responsibilities a little bit more. But it is nice to see that they move around, right? Like that Line and Caulfield kind of switch back and forth between the slot and the Ovechkin spot on the half wall, because it means that like they can't cover both of them, and it means that if you can set up a good bumper play, you have a guy in the slot, and if you can somehow get the puck across the ice to the Ovechkin spot, you'll have one of them to take a one-timer. So there are multiple scoring options here. And then there's, of course, the alternative of Nick Suzuki could just skate in from the blue line and take a wrist shot, as we've seen him do in the past. I'm more concerned with power play 2. They went because when Lane Hutson was on that unit, they were a viable power play unit. And I'm not saying that Mike Matheson has made them not viable, but I don't see anything on that unit that works. I have a really hard time with it because like they have a player like Emil Heineman who has an incredible shot, and we never get to see it because most of the time power play 1 is taking up like 90 seconds and they're coming on the ice for 30 seconds, usually on the fly, which means it's really 10 seconds of power play time. Any thoughts on power play 2, like what they could do to improve that?
Just practice, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I worry about Kirby Dach's role on that power play. I really don't understand what he's doing there.
I don't think he does either.
I think that's the big issue with Dach right now is, we're all saying, we have to give him time to come back from injury. It's less the injury that I'm worried about. It's his brain. Yeah. Like it's I don't know what he's thinking a lot of the time. So that's
totally
the part
fair.
To watch. Yeah. Yeah. He's very much figuring it out. I think this has taken him longer to realize or to figure out his season than he would have liked. And that's sort of where we're at, is he's just kind of second guessing everything that he does. The penalty kill. Granted, Winnipeg is one of the best power play teams in the league. So, to give up 2 against Winnipeg makes sense, right? To give up 2 against the Pittsburgh Penguins team that is not very good, that sort of shows me that this is a bit of a trend. They were great against Nashville last week, and since then it's kind of been, I don't think they've had a clean night on the penalty kill. What's going on there? Because I have a hard time diagnosing penalty kills. It just seems like they're giving up just 10 bell chances all the time.
It feels like they're a step behind. It feels like they are not anticipating the play. Like and again, this is just my observation. I could be wrong. It feels like they fail to act quickly enough. And I think they're missing the play. It's not like, you're looking at that and you're like, okay, well, are they doing man-to-man defense again? What are they doing? Right. And I just feel like they're failing to have those instincts. And then there's a lack of confidence there. And that's the problem, is that if you have a lack of confidence, like, how do you fix that?
Yeah, I don't know. And I think part of it maybe in that Winnipeg game is they were overworked. Yeah. And they had to kill 6 penalties in that game. And one of them was a very lengthy 5-on-3 because Caulfield took a hooking penalty, and then immediately off the faceoff, Christian Dvorak just cross-checked Mark Scheifele in the face, which,
he deserved.
I'm not mad at him. I'm just disappointed. So like, I think they're taking too many penalties, which is something that like we thought that they were worked on last year. Remember last year how undisciplined this team was? They're definitely better this year. Yeah. But I also find it funny that one of the players who's taking like a penalty a game was Kirby Dach, who wasn't on this team much of last year.
Yeah.
Like every time I watch him take a penalty, I'm like, man, didn't we get this out of you last year? And it's like,
no,
we didn't. You were in the press box the entire year.
Yeah.
So it's like he's a step behind in the Marty St. Louis school of don't take penalties, So I think that unit is good enough that they'll turn it around, especially on home ice. They're definitely the penalty kill is way better on home ice than it is on the road. I don't know why that is. Maybe the crowd helps. I really don't know, because it's like, well, they get last change. Yeah, but you always put out your top penalty kill unit first. So that doesn't really
matter. It shouldn't factor in.
Right.
I wonder if it's just maybe the ice is better at the Bell Center. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's
something stupid like that.
From what players say, it's some of the best ice in the league. It's not like Madison Square Garden, which is always bad, and then they have a Creed concert the night before and ruin it.
Yeah.
Anyway, not still mad about that game. Don't put in the paper that I was mad. All right, let's hit our trivia and we'll move on with our day, huh? Last episode, the trivia was actually turned over to you guys. I asked you guys to remember a guy, and I have two answers here that I really liked. Garland 6850 on YouTube said Adam Brooks and Sammy Niku. Those are prime Mark Bergevin guys. Really appreciated those. And of course, we could not go an episode without a mention of one of the Roberts brothers, Kyle Roberts. He says 1 goal, 3 assists, 57 games, 18th overall in 1996. First round pick bust Matt Higgins, which is that is a name.
That one wins for me.
It's very good. For me personally, the one that I came up with while I was driving home from Hartford was Xavier Ouellet.
Oh,
that was a guy.
He was definitely a guy, and a very recent guy too.
Yeah, definitely a recent. I think he only had like 100 or 200 games in the NHL, most of them with Montreal, the others with Detroit. Captain of the Laval Rocket, Xavier Ouellet. So that was a guy that I thought of that I don't think anyone's really thought of in a long time. All right, we'll hit up today's question and then we'll let everybody get on with their day. This one is a follow the player path, and you'll notice Montreal is not listed here. So put on your thinking cap and try to understand where I'm going for here. Follow the path: Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Winnipeg, Hartford, Chicago, Ottawa, Buffalo. I'll do that one more time. Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Winnipeg, Hartford, Chicago, Ottawa, Buffalo. If you have the answer, put it in the comments below. We will shout out whoever gets it right and pin you on the YouTube video, so you have bragging rights over the rest of our listeners. All right, we're going to head out of here. Thanks so much for making Locked On Canadiens your first listen of the day. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are on Blue Sky at Locked On Canadiens, TikTok at Locked On Canadiens, Instagram at Locked On Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. Remember to send us in your contest entries, your Spotify Wraps, your kind reviews will enter you in the drawing for that signed Carey Price picture. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.